there's a lot of big stories in the Big Ten. Just like the SEC, they are the rulers of college football this day and age. And I'm going to start right at the top. We mentioned them before. I think Penn State is probably your biggest story in the Big Ten coming into this year. They're kind of taking that mold that Ohio State and Michigan did the last couple of years. A lot of returning people coming back. They've got 14 starters. They've got Drew Allar at quarterback. They've got two awesome running backs, Zane Durant and AJ Harris on defense. Bro, do you think this is the year that Penn State can finally put it all together and get over the hump that's been Ohio State, Michigan, that kind of group for them?
I think yes. I think this is the best opportunity that they have had in a very long time. There's two pieces to this. Can Drew Allar prove that he's that top tier quarterback? And then the other thing is, can James Franklin not coach his way out of a victory?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's trying, right? He went out and got Ohio State's defensive coordinator to help bolster their defense. He's got stars on offense. He's got Drew Allar back there, and he's got Katron Allen and Singleton back there running the ball. So if they can kind of continue the success that they had at the end of last year, it's just a question of getting over the hump in the conference.
Yeah, and I think they can do it. They've got probably the most talent. Well, no, they don't have the most talent in the Big Ten. That's Ohio State, just from blue chip ratio. But as far as returning talent, they've got the most people returning. You got a lot of people that could have gone to the NFL last year that didn't, and they're coming back. That's a trend that is proven to be successful with national championship teams. You get the right people to come back, and boom, the chips fall right in place.
So after Penn State, obviously our next big attention is Ohio State. Obviously looking for a repeat, looking to become the first team since Georgia in 2021-22 to repeat. And they've, starting right at the top, they've got two of the best players in the country leading that team. Jeremiah Smith, fantastic wide receiver. Caleb Downs, great safety, punt returner. But the question is, can they find enough to plug in for those guys that they did lose? They did lose their defensive coordinator. They lost their offensive coordinator. So they've got a new coaching staff. They're under Ryan Day. And they need to find a quarterback. Julian Sayin looks like he's going to get the starting job, but you don't know until they hit the field. And then their big question is, can they finally beat Michigan? Because despite winning the national championship last year, I think their bigger goal this year is to break their 4-year drought to Michigan.
Yeah, that's going to be the number one thing on their whiteboard, right? At the beginning of the year, you have a theme, something that you can rally around. A couple of years ago for Michigan, it was beat Georgia, and that was their motto to win the national championship, and they did, with some controversy. But that's a discussion for another day. But for Ohio State, like you said, a lot of holes to fill. And with their quarterback situation, they are spending a lot of money on their quarterback situation. So we'll see how that pans out for them, because if you're spending a lot on one position, that means you're not on another position. Now, that might not mean anything right now in this early stage of the whole clearinghouse stuff, trying to get figured out. But that'll be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And, for Ohio State, it's interesting because you're defending national champion and you're going to open the year against Texas, a team who we just saw in the coaches poll is picked ahead of you and was a really close game when they played in the semifinals in the playoff last year. The fumble that Ohio State took back kind of put the game out of reach, but that was a really competitive game. And you're going to see week one if this team has found some answers at the positions that they lost people, or if it's going to be, one of those situations where they've got to develop guys throughout the year. It's going to be a real fun game. I think they said this is the first time that the teams that are opening number 1 and number 2 in the preseason polls are playing week one. So that's going to be cool. Cool situation. It's going to be a great environment to open the season, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, that's definitely a game to circle on the calendar, and even better that it's week one. I don't think we're going to learn a lot about these teams after the first week. Normally, in a big game like that, you feel like you will learn a lot. I mean, we will learn some things, but the first game of the year, doesn't matter who it is, that's not the team that you finish with. And both these teams coming in are starting new quarterbacks. Ohio State has to replace all their starters on the offensive line and 9 people from the defense. So, like, who's going to step up and be that leader, heart and soul of the team, like Jack Sawyer was last year?
This game is kind of comparable to the 2021 Georgia Clemson game, right? Both of those, Georgia and Clemson, both coming in that year, had some questions. They'd both been good teams. Clemson in particular had the Trevor Lawrence years, and so they didn't know really what Clemson was going to be. They knew they were going to have a good defense, right? And Georgia knew they were going to have a good defense, and that game was a slobber knocker defensive battle that Georgia ended up winning, and Georgia rode that momentum throughout the season, eventually to a national championship. Clemson kind of fell off. So you wonder if the results of that first week's game really won't have long-term effects on conference records because it's out of conference, but to the team that wins, that might give them that jolt of confidence that they need to continue to be that team that sits at the top of the poll the rest of the season.
True. But it could also be the motivating factor for the losing team to just go on fire. Think right. Notre Dame last year after Northern Illinois.
You're right.
Think Ohio State after Michigan last year.
Well, that was their coach playing for his job, which was crazy to think that if Ohio State would not have won a national championship, Ryan Day might have been fired.
He might have. So, okay. So that actually makes me think of something interesting. So they win the national championship last year. Does that give Ryan Day kind of an air of relief, maybe lead to some complacency?
I don't know. I mean, people said the same thing about Kirby, right? The expectations hadn't gotten over the hump yet, had not won the national championship. No, I don't think so. At least not yet, anyway. Not with the players he's got coming back from that team, the star players he's got coming back. I don't think so yet. Now, down the road, if they win again, then you could see that, because you did kind of see that at Georgia. Not complacency, but just
it happens.
Right?
It happens to everybody. Even happened to the Nick Saban Alabama teams. That's right. Why they didn't win it every year. It was more like every other year.
Right. All right. So other than Ohio State, our other playoff team from last year out of the Big Ten was Indiana. And this is a school that has gotten a lot of press because their coach has made it a point to say that they're not going to schedule tough out of conference. So we're going to find out if Indiana, coming off their best season in school history, is for real or not. And to me, the whole schedule comes down to 2 games, right? They've got away games at Oregon and Penn State. The rest of their schedule should be very winnable. But Burl, do you think that if they lose those 2 games and they get beat bad, could they go 10-2 and miss the playoff?
If they get beat bad, yeah, they could. Because who on their schedule can they point to as a huge win?
I don't know. I mean, I think their toughest other game is like Iowa, and we don't know what Iowa's going to be. Are they going to be what they were a couple of years ago, or what they've been the last couple of years? So I don't know.
They play Michigan again this year?
Indiana? I don't think so. Let me check. So no, they don't play Michigan. They play Iowa. They have Illinois, and then of course they have Oregon, and they have Penn State. Those are their tougher games, I would say.
Yeah, Illinois, that if they can pull that game out and keep the other 2 close, then I think they make the playoff.
So you think they're for real? Or do you think they're a pretender? Was that a 1-year? Kurt Signetti saw an opportunity, took it, and they're going to go back to being what they've been for most of their history?
I feel like it's a 1 year thing, but given that they're opting for the easiest schedule possible, I mean, they are literally trying to get the easiest schedule possible, and no one can argue that. If you could put that in the comments. You can debate us in the comments about Indiana, but they backed out of a game against Virginia. Scary Virginia. I feel like they're kind of a 1 year nice story, and maybe we'll be like a middle tier Big Ten team that maybe every now and then has a team that surprises people.
So they'll be like Michigan State.
Yeah, kind of. Well, back when Michigan State was actually.
Hey, Michigan State made the college football playoff. Don't forget that.
They did a long time ago.
All right. So next team I want to talk about is Michigan. Michigan has a ton of momentum from the end of the year last year. They closed the season beating Ohio State and then beating Alabama in the bowl game. And they've got the number one recruit in the country coming in to play quarterback. Looks like he's probably going to get the start. Does Michigan ride that momentum back to what they were 2 years ago?
I think Michigan is probably the most dangerous team in the Big Ten. Because you look at how they did last year. They had everything except a passing game. And I said it many times last year. If they figured out how to complete a forward pass, they were going to be real dangerous. Because just watching their games, they are moving people on both sides of the ball. They play great defense. The other big wild card for Michigan is their head coaching situation with all of the scandal stuff going on.
Right. So Sharon Moore is suspended. What? But it's not. It's starting like week 3, right?
Well, it's like week 3 and then week 5 or something. Just
yeah. So,
but still, if anything else comes out of the NCAA rulings, who knows?
Because that was self-imposed, right? So yeah, they could make a decision to give him something more. They've got a week 2 game against Oklahoma. And so Oklahoma obviously coming off a disappointing year, hoping to get back. That could be interesting because you've got these two schools, traditional powers, both disappointing years last year, looking to get back. We'll see what happens there. The schedule is kind of nice for them. They don't play Oregon, they don't play Penn State, and they don't play Indiana this year. So they avoid 3 teams that were in the playoff last year. They do play Ohio State, of course, at the end of the year. So that sets up pretty nice for them. If they can get that momentum going with Underwood, if he gets, comfortable by the end of the season, it's the last game of the year, it won't matter that he's a freshman when they go to play Ohio State. So definitely look for Michigan. If they get that win early over Oklahoma, really look for them to kind of get it going. And then it'll come down to that game against Ohio State.
Yeah, that Oklahoma game, that's going to be a really big game for both of those teams. I think we'll learn a lot about both of those teams in that game because they'll have at least a week or 2 under their belts and ready to step up the competition.
Yeah. All right. Last thing we want to talk about in the Big Ten is Oregon, your defending conference champion who won the league first year, was undefeated, number 1 a lot of the season last year, but then the season kind of ended disappointing with a blowout loss to Ohio State. The schedule looks good. Once again, they kind of have it scheduled where their 2 toughest games are right in the middle of the year and they're back to back. They play Penn State and Indiana back to back. But those are the only games on their conference or on their schedule right now that are ranked teams going into the season. So they could be set up nicely to have a good run, maybe only drop one of those games and they're back in the conference championship. A lot's going to fall on Dante Moore. They placed a lot of confidence in Dante Moore. They bucked the system for this year. They didn't go out and get a transfer quarterback. This is the guy they signed a couple years ago. Uber talented. Dan Lanning loves him. And they did pick up a big-time player in the portal, number 2 overall player, actually, Isaiah World, a 6'8", 309 tackle from Nevada, who
Wow. What a great
it
name.
looks like he's gonna. Right. His name is Isaiah World, and he's 6'8".
Like how is this guy not on the all name list? I've seen a million of those this year, and like that's up there with King Large.
Right. So what do you think though? What do you think for Oregon, Burl? Is it another successful year 2 in the Big Ten, or do they come a little bit back to reality this year?
I think they're still going to have success. They've got a good program there. Dan Lanning's doing a great job of managing that program, and I think for them it's just more of okay, reload and let's go.
All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of give who we think is going to meet up in the conference championship game. We're not going to give our conference champion. We'll do that in a couple of weeks when we do the Georgia preview show. But in terms of who we think is going to, appear in that conference championship game, looking at the schedules, I mean, your two strongest teams, I think, are Ohio State and Penn State. Yes, they will meet in the regular season, but I think it sets up that you're going to have a rematch in the Big Ten championship this year.
Yeah, that I was just thinking that is a huge possibility. But I could also see it being Michigan and Penn State.
Yeah, it absolutely could be. It just depends on that game, right? At the end of the year, Ohio State and Michigan, a lot's going to come down to that, I think, this year. Whereas last year, Michigan winning may have actually helped Ohio State because it gave them that extra motivation and they didn't have to go play in that conference championship. They kind of had that time to get themselves right. But maybe this year,
I guess this year we'll still have that debate on whether being in your conference championship is helpful or harmful.
So just for fun, I ran a season through EA Sports College Football just to kind of see what they thought would shake out for the league this year. In their prediction or their simulation, Oregon finishes the year at 11-1, and Penn State also goes 11-1. So those are the teams that they thought were going to meet up in the Big Ten championship. Funny enough, they had Ohio State going 7-5. So
wow,
I don't know if that's going to happen, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah, there's no way UCLA finishes above Ohio State.